In August 1914, Ernest Shackleton set out to do something no one had ever done: cross the vast, icy continent of Antarctica on foot. He called it the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. To transport his hand-picked crew of 28 men, he chose a vessel engineered specifically to withstand the polar extremes. The Endurance was built with massive wooden planks to take heavy punishment from the freezing sea. As they navigated the Weddell Sea, the dark water slowly thickened into solid sheets of ice. By January, their progress dropped to mere meters a day. Then, with sudden finality, the ship ground to a halt. The Endurance was locked fast in the frozen ocean. At first, the crew hacked at the ice with picks and shovels. But the massive ice sheet holding them wasn't static. It floated. Over the coming months, the ice drifted, dragging the trapped vessel thousands of kilometers in the wrong direction, deeper into the Weddell Sea. As winter arrived and temperatures plummeted to -30 degrees Celsius, the ice contracted. Millions of tons of pressure began to twist and squeeze the ship's hull. On April 14th, the wooden planks finally buckled. Steel bolts shot out like bullets, and freezing water poured into the hold. Shackleton ordered his men to abandon ship. Eventually, the crushed remains of the Endurance sank into the dark water, leaving 28 men stranded on a floating sheet of ice with 3 lifeboats, a sled, and 1 month's worth of rations. Shackleton stood before his crew and announced a new mission. They would no longer cross the continent. They were going home. They were now survivalists in an environment actively trying to crush them. Their temporary refuge was the very thing that destroyed their ship. They pitched their tents on the sea ice, a surface that felt like solid ground, but was constantly floating, melting, and at risk of splitting beneath their feet. To reach open water, they had to move. The men hitched themselves to the 3 lifeboats, each weighing 1,000 kilograms, and attempted to drag them across the soft, uneven summer ice. The physical toll was agonizing, and progress was nearly impossible. Weight quickly became their enemy. Shackleton ordered everyone to discard all non-essential gear, strictly limiting personal belongings to 2 pounds per man. Even the expedition's photographer was forced to abandon 250 glass plate negatives in the snow, saving only a fraction to document their ordeal. As they camped on the drifting floes, food supplies shrank to a single biscuit and a scrap of meat. Shackleton, observing the mental strain on his crew, began misreporting the remaining food quantities, frequently claiming they had more than they did to keep the lead of their situation from breaking their resolve. In late March, the ice beneath their tents suddenly cracked with a deafening split. Men scrambled in the darkness as the frozen ground tore apart, plunging some directly into the freezing water. The ice sheet was breaking up. Simply enduring the ice was no longer an option. Survival now required navigating a deadly open ocean without a proper vessel. After nearly a year and a half of living on frozen water, the exhausted crew dragged themselves onto the rocky shores of Elephant Island.
They finally had solid ground under their feet, but the island was a desolate, uninhabited rock completely outside any shipping lanes. To wait there meant certain starvation. Shackleton made a brutal calculation. He would leave 22 men behind and take his 5 strongest crew members in a single 7-meter lifeboat. Their target, South Georgia, 1,300 kilometers away. To reach it, they had to cross the Drake Passage, the most violent ocean on Earth, channeling massive currents and hurricane-force winds into a narrow corridor. For 16 days, the 6 men battled waves reaching 12 meters high. Crammed inside a tiny boat named the James Caird, they were unable to even sit up comfortably, violently pitched around in the freezing dark. Their routine was mechanical and desperate. They operated in shifts: 4 hours of rowing, followed immediately by 4 hours of frantically bailing freezing seawater out of the hull just to keep the boat from sinking. On May 10, 1916, they finally sighted South Georgia, but the ocean threw them onto the southern, uninhabited coast. They had survived the water, only to be stranded on the wrong side of an impassable island. Between their landing spot and the whaling stations on the northern shore lay an uncharted, glacier-covered mountain range.
Sailing around the island meant another 200 kilometers of ocean that their battered boat could not survive. Leaving 3 exhausted men with the boat, Shackleton and 2 others began to walk. With 0 mountaineering equipment, they pushed through snow and ice for 36 straight hours. They scaled 3 separate ridges, only to find sheer drops on the other side, forcing them to retrace their steps and climb again. Finally, cresting the 4th mountain, they saw the smoke of the Stromness whaling station. When 3 blackened, hollow-cheeked men walked into the camp on May 20th, the station captain was stunned. The world had assumed the expedition was lost to the ice 2 years prior. Shackleton immediately secured a boat to rescue the 3 men on the other side of the island, but his 22 crew members were still trapped on Elephant Island. For 3 months, he tried to reach them. 3 separate rescue ships were forced back by impenetrable walls of pack ice. Back on the bleak shores of Elephant Island, the stranded men huddled under their overturned lifeboats. Second-in-command Frank Wild kept them alive by enforcing a rigid psychological routine. Every single morning, he ordered the men to pack their gear, maintaining the collective belief that Shackleton would arrive that day. On his 4th attempt, commanding a steel-hulled vessel loaned by the Chilean government, Shackleton finally broke through the ice. As he stood on the deck looking toward the beach, he watched his men waving frantically from the shore. All 22 men were alive. The mission failed in every geographic objective. Yet through 2 years of crushed ships, melting ice, and the crossing of the world's most violent ocean, all 28 men who set sail on the Endurance returned home alive. It remains a definitive example of how adaptive leadership can overcome an escalating cascade of lethal variables.